Hello Year 10. This is a brief screencast aimed at the students who worked with me in the extension group, but anyone is more than welcome to use this. It is focusing on exam revision and preparation for Into the Wild and First They Killed My Father. The help has been covered in class, so I'm not going to do that, but I will just do a quick screencast on the second prompt for this the practice exam paper that you were given today in class. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to pause this video, write this out in your exercise book, and then I want you to do these 4 tasks. They are not difficult, but maybe leave space on your page so that you can answer each area. So underline the key words, find 3 synonyms for each, rewrite the prompt in your own words, just this last part, and identify the context of the quote. So I'm going to pause now, and I want you to do those things in your exercise book. All right, I'm assuming that you've done it at this point, and we'll go through a couple of the elements that I'd be looking at. Both Lung and Christopher, so this is, you're kind of comparing and contrasting with that word. See themselves, so the way in which they perceive of themselves in their environments, and the way that they believe that they live and exist is as victims. So we want some synonyms for that, of other people's corruption. So for Christopher, he thinks he's the victim of possibly his parents' corruption, and also in general society's corruption, that it's materialism, its obsession with wealth and power, and he makes comment he doesn't understand why people are just so mean to each other. So he sees himself as a victim of this, and that's also perpetuated in his study of apartheid in South Africa and the food crisis. So there are a number of points of evidence there that I've just referenced that you could use to talk about Christopher. And I'm not sure I've followed up all of them in this slides because I was on a different wave before, but that's something you can think about. Lung sees herself as the victim of the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot's regime. So they are kind of searching for or trying to create an idealistic communist society in which everyone is equal. So that's why they all have to wear black with the red sashes. She has to give up her clothes, her money, her home, her possessions, her identity in order to kind of try to escape this corruption. But she sees herself as a victim of that. By extension, you might also say that she sees herself as a victim of her, maybe of her mother's for a little while, though I think in the end she forgives her for that, but possibly she does see herself as a victim when her mum sends her away. Finally, it says other people's corruption and abuse, and again that lends back to the Khmer Rouge and the parents. Discuss. This opens it up to challenging the prompt, so you might say that Lung and Christopher aren't always the victims. There are times in which they themselves are abusive or corrupt, you could say, and you might talk about when Lung steals from her family, or when Christopher abandons his family and leaves his sister all alone, and his parents quite upset. And there's a quote that says they were people softened by the loss, or something like that. So you could say how he's transformed his parents. Okay, so there was a lot there. You could have added some notes. If you want to go back, re-listen to it, go ahead, add some notes to your exercise book. All right, these are the words that you need to find synonyms for. I'm not going to do that. It's called a dictionary on your computer, or in your hand, use it. Rephrase. So these are some of the ideas I'd be thinking about when I'm rephrasing the prompt. And the reason I ask you to rephrase the prompt is because this is what I would use as my response to the prompt in the introduction. So you would have your first sentence, which is an orientation, which is kind of a comment about the bigger issues, which is, that both texts explore the ways in which, people are victims of corruption and abuse. So that's what you want to be creating, kind of orientation sentence here, and then suggesting exactly how you think. So you might say, whilst predominantly these two are considered victims of other people's corruption and abuse, that being the Khmer Rouge and Walt and Billy McCandless, there are times in which they themselves are the perpetrators of abuse, and so they're not always immune from this title. All right, so who is corrupt? Why? How do you know this? What does it mean to be a victim? What does that look like in the text? What makes Lung a victim? What makes Chris also a victim? And what role do idealism and materialism play in the reason why these two are victims? So Chris is concerned about the materialism of society and his parents. He is an idealistic person. That's why he's going out to seek a spiritual revolution in the Alaskan wilderness. The Khmer Rouge are idealistic in what they're pursuing, and they want to eradicate materialism, which is what kind of Lung and her family are symbolic of in terms of the Khmer Rouge. That's how they see them, and they're trying to eradicate those parts of society. Okay, you need to identify the context of the quote. This one is from Pa. It's referencing the Khmer Rouge, who are the perpetrators of this violence. Sorry. Things refers to much more than just physical objects or material ideas. He also seems to be suggesting that they are destroying a way of life, families, communities, values, etc., and possibly even the country itself of Cambodia. Walt, Chris's father, which is what this quote is in reference to, and it's Corinne in a voiceover, but it's referring to this idea that his father has lived a lie that Chris cannot reconcile or cannot deal with. The existence of this other family makes him feel as if his life is a lie and his existence is somehow tarnished, which means to be ruined or to be wrecked in some way. It's less perfect by his parents' behaviour. This betrayal only exacerbates, makes worse Chris's other concerns, their abusive lifestyle, their materialism, etc., and their obsession with what other people think. Because this is kind of everything that he comes back to, a murder of everyday's truth. It's something he just cannot escape, and he feels as if his whole entire life has become a lie, and everything was transformed with the realization that his father and mother were so dishonest. So this is a bit overwhelming, all this text, but here are some paragraph ideas as well as what I've already talked about. So Ung and McCandless, now before I go, these are not perfectly worded topic sentences. They do need developing, but they are some ideas for you. Ung and McCandless are both victims of abusive authorities. However, the reality of these experiences is vastly different in the two texts. So comparing what's similar, contrasting what's different. So you can talk about how the Khmer Rouge and the parents, However, the reality of this is one is kind of going on in the Cambodian jungle, and McCandless is touring across America and then out into the Alaskan wilderness. So focus primarily on the abuse. What is it? Where is it occurring? Why does it occur? And who is responsible? Then your secondary element is to contrast how it is different in the two texts. Second paragraph might be about idealism can be a driving force for corruption, as is true in the case of the Khmer Rouge. In contrast is McCandless's idealism that sees him escape into the wild, where he isolates himself in search of a spiritual revolution, which will restore what has been lost as a result of his belief in his parents' corrupt and materialistic pursuits. That does need some rephrasing, clearly. It's far too long, and this point at the end here what has been lost as a result of his belief in his parents' corrupt and materialistic pursuits needs clarifying, because it's not 100% clear that the point that I'm making. But basically, I'm trying to say that he claims that they are corrupt and materialistic. That's a subjective view. We don't know that that is necessarily the way they were. All we know is how Chris presents them in his own writing and in his book. Lung is a sympathetic victim, so this is your third paragraph. In contrast, McCandless' obsession with idealism is often seen by audiences arrogant and selfish, and thus he is cast as a less likable individual because he had the power to determine his own future, and therefore he alone is responsible for his demise. That should say his demise. Look, that one again, I don't reckon that is clearly referencing back to the prompt. Let's have a look. See themselves as victims of other people's corruption. Oh, we've got the sympathetic victim. That one works okay. And then this one, challenging the prompt. So sometimes it helps in the third paragraph to challenge it or say the opposite of it. So like I said at the beginning, you could present them as both not necessarily always being victim. And you say, whilst the two protagonists are predominantly victims of corrupt leaders, and that would be the Khmer Rouge and his parents, you might say corrupt authorities might work better rather than leaders. The two can be themselves blamed for abuses enacted against their own families. So the guilt of stealing, etc. And then Christopher, very much so for the way in which he abandons kind of Corinne and his mum and dad and leaves them just in this limbo land where they don't know what's happening to him. All right, that's it for my slides. I talked about lots of evidence at the start. So you just kind of need to collate this into a detailed essay plan, put your evidence underneath these paragraph topic sentences, and then dot point what points you'd like to make about those. I will make these slides available under the video below, so you can check them out there. Alternatively, they should also be on the Google Classroom. Good luck. If you've got any questions, come and see me.